Are you the parent of a young lady who is younger than 12 years old? If you are, have you been watching her young body develop and find yourself asking questions like, is this normal? If you're asking those kinds of questions that you won't want to miss. In this week's episode, we're going to look at what is normal versus what is normalized in the early development of a young girl and what can be done to support their body in the highest and best good to get their period off to a nice, healthy start. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show. Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. On this show, we do a lot of myth busting, normal versus normalized. And this episode is no different. So I have seen on Facebook moms groups and other kinds of discussion forums a lot of chatter lately about girls starting their period before the age of 12. Now, recently, there has been some news media highlighting the fact that there is starting to become more of a public acknowledgement around the fact that girls are starting puberty earlier than they've ever started it before. So I thought that it would be helpful, especially to any of you who are listening who has a young lady at home, what is normal and what is normalized. Okay. And I'm also going to start this episode by saying that if you are an adult cycling woman who is one of these people who did start before the age of 12, none of this is being said in a way that you should internalize any level of shame. It is not your fault. Okay. I just wanted to bring to light that we're starting to see increasing numbers of girls having this experience. Yes, it did happen before when I was younger, but it was less common than it is now. And we've watched the average age of cycles starting continue to decrease since the turn of the century. So, like I always do on this show, let's talk about what's normal versus what's normalized. Okay. We look at a period starting as long as it's 9 or older as normal in terms of the benchmark, 9 to 16. Okay. From a Chinese medicine standpoint, that's too early because the body has to complete its 7-year cycles or its second 7-year cycle in this particular case in order to have all the resources onboarded to execute this cycle in a healthy way. There is a difference between a breakthrough bleed and an actual cycle. Okay. An actual cycle means that ovulation has taken place and a shedding of a uterine lining is happening. The color of the blood is different than when you're having a breakthrough bleed, which is much, much brighter typically. So a lot of times when young ladies are experiencing bleeds that are happening before the age of 12, they aren't happening in any sort of a predictable cadence. There are some outliers, but on average, It's happening because there's a breakthrough bleed. The body needs some sort of resource or resources that it doesn't have enough of. So the body doesn't have enough chi or energy, vital energy, to hold the doors closed and the blood is released. Okay. So, according to Chinese medicine, cycles should start on average between 12 and 14. If a young woman hasn't had a period and they are 16 or older, that tells a story of a certain kind of deficiency. Same thing if the cycle is shorter. And if you have a young lady that falls into, or young ladies that fall into any of these categories, please, please, please feel free to reach out to Moon Essence. We will take really good care of you. There are lots of things that we can do to help make sure that the body is properly resourced. And when I say resourced, it could be minerals and nutrients. It could be vital energy, because let's face it, our kids are massively overscheduled these days. And we are teaching them that productivity, constant movement, constant stimulation is a healthy lifestyle, and it is not. So, this is where I'm saying we are starting to normalize some of these ways that our bodies are screaming at us and saying, hey, this is too much for me. I'm not supposed to be pushing this much. I need to have downtime. I need to have unstructured time. Adult women experience this also, fully mature adult women who have been cycling. So I talked about 7-year cycles. If you did not catch the early part of season 2, where I walk through each of these benchmarks, all of your 3 golden opportunities in your life to hit a reset button on your health, what, each phase of your cycle is supposed to look like, definitely check that out so that you have a benchmark for this particular conversation. But young ladies are starting earlier and earlier. So, like 1930s, the age was closer to 14. Then it was 13. Then it was 12. And now we're starting to see huge numbers of girls. Like, I have moms that come into my practice and they're like, my daughter's 10 and she just started her period. And they say it kind of like, no big deal, but because she's having discomfort, can you do something about that? And it's like, hold on a second. Can we like actually turn the gears back a little bit? Your daughter's 10. How long has she been having her period? Does it come regularly? Is it super sporadic? Do we know what color the blood is? Will she talk to you about it? Like, these are all really important pieces of information in order to be able to support young women who are hitting this transition mark a lot earlier. So, one of the things that I'm seeing in these moms groups, which is why I thought it would be important to do an episode on, is that they're starting to see pubic hair, breast buds. They might see it in their 9 or 10-year-old and they're starting to panic, thinking that the period is like right behind it, right on its heels. That's not the case. The body has to develop. Okay. So, any of you who have had young people, there is a huge difference between the face of your child prior to 7 years old. And then all of a sudden, it's almost like they go through this metamorphosis and all of the little baby cheeks kind of stuff comes out of their face. And after 7, between 7 and 14, you start seeing that young adult look to their face. Their faces slim out. They have more of an older appearance to them. And what accompanies that is they start having body changes over time. Now, I could do an entire episode on all of the crap that's in our environment, in our food, in our water, in the products that we use. Beauty care products are terrible. Fragrances that are not naturally occurring in nature, like the smell of orange juice because you squeeze the actual orange or you're using the peel. All of that kind of stuff disrupts our system. And I probably should do an entire episode on all of the garbage out there that's interfering with our whole world. There are tons of experts on Instagram and other platforms like that that specifically talk about this all day long. I would highly recommend getting yourself spun up on all of that, because there are products that I've even vetted that I felt comfortable with, that I then came to find out that that company was acquired by another company, and now they have garbage in them that they didn't have before. And I consider myself a pretty informed consumer. And just ask my family. I run around going, no, you can't get a Glade plug-in. No, you know, and they hate me for it. But like, I do that because I know how these things disrupt our hormones, our hormone production, our hormone communication, all of these kinds of things. And I have developing kids in my house. So, things that we have come to accept as benign or not a problem often have a lot of disrupting chemicals and things like that in them that are, in the United States, we let a lot of shit fly that are banned in other industrialized countries. And because of that, it's affecting the way that our kids are showing up and the way that their bodies are developing. And so, anyway, like I said, I could do an entire episode on that. It makes me crazy. But what's important is that there is a journey that takes place between 7 and 14 that prepares the body for this bleed to take place. And I've even had moms fight with me in some of these moms groups. And I'm not trying to be combative. I'm just trying to share education and information. But it's become so hardwired and so ingrained that it is normal for periods to start between 9 and 11, that they will literally go to the mat with me about it. And I'm like, listen, like, again, this is not to shame anyone, make anyone feel bad. This is not in any way to place blame or make anyone feel like they're not doing something right. It's to provide education so that you can see that certain things that don't serve your daughter's body are starting to show up in it. And wouldn't you rather get ahead of that now rather than have buyer's remorse and look back at it later and go, oh my God, I didn't know what I didn't know? I will give you a great example. My own mother has done that. I can't tell you how many times. I wish I knew when, because I had endometriosis. I had problems with my period right out of the gate. And the only solution that the doctor provided to her was to put me on birth control. And I went on birth control. I gained 30 pounds. It made me depressed and lethargic, and it made it really hard to get out of my own way, but I willpowered my way through it, only to end up in a hospital with a heart attack 10 years later because I had been taking it so long. My body had been showing me that it wasn't working for me and that I needed to do something different, but she didn't know, and neither did I. I would have chose different romantic partners. I would have done things differently in my life if I had realized that this was the effects of hormonal birth control. And now that I do the work that I do, my mother has said so many times, like, I am so sorry. Like, I wish I had known then. And the thing is we make the decisions that we make with the best information that we have available to us. Because as parents, we want better for our kids than we had, right? We want them to thrive. We want them to succeed. We want them to have things that we didn't have. We want them to make decisions so that they can have the quality of life that maybe we didn't have, or that we tried to give them, but we didn't have enough of something, so that, you know what I'm saying? Like, we dream big for our kids. I do this too. I dream big for my kids as well. I'm not insulated from this. So I understand like my mother's perspective. I understand as a parent that I feel that way too. And this is why I share this information in these mothers groups because they're working with what they know. And I want to give them more information so that they can make the most aligned decision for them and their family. And the thing is I get attacked for it because it goes against the narrative. It goes against the socially accepted norm. And I understand how uncomfortable that is. Trust me. I am the vagina steaming lady who uses sound and herbs to help people's bodies heal. Believe me, I understand what it means to go against the grain. And yet, I have hundreds of women who have come through my practice who are thriving and living better lives and living their best life. And so are their daughters because I step outside of that norm, that box that we've accepted as normal and okay. And if I had a nickel for every time I had a client that sat across the table from me and was like, oh my God, I wish I had known this information that we just had as an exchange in this intake. I wish I had known this when I was in my teens and early 20s. My whole life would have been different. Sister speaks for me. My life would have been different too. So the whole point of Reproductive Rebel, of my practice, Moon Essence, is to provide education. Yes, we help people because we give them tools to be able to support and nourish their bodies. Yes, that is what I do. But the fundamental, foundational part of this practice is education because you don't know what you don't know. And once you know, you can't stuff that shit back into a box. You see it everywhere. And you go, wow, I'm so glad I made this change. Or wow, I had no idea that I didn't know this thing. And now that I've done it, it's made a huge difference in terms of how I feel and how I show up in the world. Knowledge truly is power. And my deepest hope for this show is to help empower you to make educated decisions for you and your loved ones. So it is starting to become normalized, but it is not normal for girls to have a period start between 9 and 11. And that journey that they go on to get there, they start having pubic hair. They start with breast buds and the breasts continue to develop. And as those physical body changes begin to happen, it's not like she has breast buds, her period's coming. Like it shouldn't be that way. It should take like a couple of years of that development before you will ever see blood start. Now, obviously, everything is averages, right? So you're taking the cumulative number of young girls and you're creating an average, but there is a journey, there is a process. And just because this young lady has armpit hair or pubic hair or something like that, it doesn't mean that their period is starting tomorrow, or at least it shouldn't, because there's a progression that happens over 3 to 5 year period in that 7-year window, depending on how fast their body matures before the period ever starts. So watch how your daughter's body is shifting and changing. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out to us because we want to have her start in a healthy way. Your menarche, your menarche, I've seen it pronounced both ways. Your very first period is one of the 3 golden opportunities that your body has to hit a reset button on your health. And so helping young women start their periods in a healthy way is a serious passion project for me, because I truly believe we can have an entire generation of young women that don't even know what period cramps are if we teach them what they're looking for, how to care for their bodies, and make sure that they get all of their cycling years started in a healthy way. So there'll be information on how you can book with us in the show notes, but just know that there are a lot of moms that question whether what they're seeing in their kid is too early and what's normal. And we would love to have a conversation with you about what is normal versus what is normalized, so that you as a parent can make empowered decisions about how to support your child's health, because this is a tender, important beginning in her life to set her off for success. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at MoonEssenceMe on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.